The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Advanced Design Lunch and Learn webinar. Today we'll be looking at templates. So that's a structural engineer's perspective on increasing that productivity when it comes to your projects. So before I proceed any further, can somebody please confirm in the questions pane or the chat box whether you guys can hear me okay and also see my screen okay? Can everybody hear me okay and see my screen fine? If someone can please just confirm this in the questions box or the chat box, please. Much appreciated. Okay, so I can see a number of you've joined. I'll just allow a couple more minutes so everybody has the chance to join. So if you haven't joined yet, they'll get the chance to join. And then I'll look to start getting cracking with this webinar today. Okay, so good afternoon to those of you who've just joined. So my name is Jamil Dida. It's a little bit about myself. I'm an application engineer here at Greytech, and I'm responsible for providing you guys with all the latest material and webinars, and I also get involved in some training and demonstration of our structural products. And I also, from time to time, provide technical support where required. So the products which I cover are mainly advanced design, advanced design modules, Statica, and also a bit of robot structural analysis. So before joining Greytech, I worked as a structural engineer for several years in the industry, and my experience ranges across a variety of sectors. So that, to name a few, that's retail, residential, and commercial. So I've designed many different types of structures during my time. So they are from some of the simplest structures to multi-story RC structures. And I've designed a variety of codes, Eurocodes, and also British standards. So this handout here, the presentation I'm going through, this handout is also available for you guys, and you have direct links to contact me. So you can reach me on LinkedIn, and also you can send me an email. If you have any other questions, please feel free to send me an email. Okay, so you have these direct links in the handout. And this webinar is also going to be recorded as well. So if you've missed any of the previous webinars for the Lunch and Learn Week, the previous days, not to worry. We will be shortly uploading those to our Greytech Content Center, where you can watch these webinars. And this one will also be added to that. So the Greytech Content Center is where we upload all of our latest content. So this can be some of the best practices from our experts, where they also share tips and tricks. It could be for your modeling, your design, and also generally the best way around projects. And there you can also get access to industry workflows, so generally good practices for those workflows and how everything works. Please allow up to 2 weeks for this webinar to be added to our Greytech Content Center. So now let's take a look at the agenda for today's webinar. So today is all about advanced design templates and how to increase your productivity when you're using advanced design for your projects. So we want to be able to save as much time as possible when we're either modeling, designing, and or even during analysis. So we want to be able to have these tricks up our sleeves to save that time. So to start with, I'm going to be taking you through the element properties. So that will be changing properties for an element. So that could be this eccentricity, adding haunches in, section sizes, materials, and then that will take us on to some design properties. So these design properties are related to your design parameters, such as your deflection parameters, second order effects, any buckling effects that you want to consider as well. Once we've analyzed the structure, we need to be able to obviously optimize the steel sections that we've used in that model. So we want to make sure that we're using the most efficient design as possible. So as part of the steel optimization, again, we want to be able to make use of those templates. That then leads us on to reports. Again, generating reports can take quite a long time for some structural engineers. So some of the structural engineers that we've spoken to, they say that they tend to spend 30% upwards of their time just compiling those PDFs, generating those reports, and then having to go back to regenerate those reports after they've made any changes to the model. So we actually want to make sure that that time is productive time. So we want to spend the least amount of time possible when it comes to generating reports. And the same can be said for RC member design. Okay, so towards the end, we'll be looking at using templates for designing reinforced concrete elements. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's session and that you have something to take away today and a few more tricks that you can add to add to your library if you already use advanced design, or if you're a new advanced design user. Hopefully you can see the templates that we have on offer to increase your productivity. So time now to get started. So the steel portal frame, and I'm going to start with by just changing the properties. So I'm going to change some of the properties for the elements. Okay, so if you have any questions related to today's webinar, please feel free to post your questions in either the question box or the chat pane, and I will pick these up at the end. So, as an example, I'm going to select one of these rafters, and I'm going to look to change the section size, and also change the materials on there. And because it's connected to a column, in this case, I'd like to add a haunch to it as well. So I'm going to modify just these properties, these element properties for this rafter on its own, and then you'll see how I quickly apply this across the rest of the rafters in this portal frame structure. So let's just increase that size to a 2 or 3 UB section. There we are. Zoom in a little bit closer. Material. So let's choose S355. We can also have a look at eccentricity. So we have a range of options available for that eccentricity. Let's have it to the top of here, so top of column, aligning with the top flange, obviously. Yeah. So now I should be able to add in a haunch as well. So in the first end, I want to add a haunch in between this column and the rafter. So let's add one below it. There we go. I can choose to have identical to cross sections, or I can also use the custom section size if I wanted to. So you can see now that this rafter is now totally different to the one on the other side. So I've changed a few of the properties there. And the next thing to do is save this properties as a template. So I'm going to save these properties into a template where I will then look to apply this template to the rest of the rafters. So I've saved my template, and now let's look at applying these properties to the remaining rafters. So select rafters. There's several ways to isolate elements in here in advanced design. So it's very easy to manage your model. You can see all the rafters apart from the one that I've changed. So let's select these, and all I have to do now is load the properties we have just saved. So let's bring this template in and apply it to these rafters. So here we go. You can see just how quickly I've applied these settings and carried them through to the rest of the rafters. They've all got the haunches now with the updated section sizes and the eccentricity along with the steel grade as well. A very useful tool to have when it comes to modeling and finding the element properties. And not only are we saving time, we are also preventing any inconsistencies. So if I try to modify these individually, I could accidentally choose different parameters for some of them, so they don't end up matching. Now here I'm looking at the design template. So that was the properties template which we saw. The design template here. This is for the use of steel design. So here you can see the properties. We have a variety of settings for the steel design. So we have advanced stability, second order effects if we want to consider these, warping, and some other second order effects. I'll show what these look like. Okay, so you can take the strands, or you can add your own manual strands in it as well. In this case, I'm not going to consider any second order effects. Okay, so it's a little bit about the second order effects there. I also have towards the bottom, you see here some settings for the deflection. So here we can define our deflection limits. So allowable deflection limit 1 and 2. So I've just shown you how I change this individually. At the moment, I'm changing these properties. I'm just flicking through these properties on an individual basis, or as if it were for each purlin, purlin by purlin. So let's have a look at some of the lateral torsional buckling checks. Lateral torsional buckling. B. So this is put into your upper and lower flange. Okay, so you can also choose the type of restraint as well for each of those flanges at each end. So at the moment it's pinned. You can also choose to have that fixed if you want it. Okay, so a very detailed set of parameters there for the LTB. So I can either modify those design properties individually, or I can choose to create a design template. Okay, so this will be a template which will be applied across for all of the purlins with the uniform design settings. So now I'm going to add a template for some columns, for example. Okay, we'll call this columns, and we want a steel material family. Like that one. So I can do this for as many elements as I want. So in this case, I'm just going to do it for columns and purlins. So here you can see I've got templates now, and each of those templates can have their own settings. So they can have their own deflection limits, their own checks, and also their own settings for generally any other second order effects or buckling effects or deflections. Okay, so you can see just how I'm amending these changes. So those exact same properties, design properties, are available within this design templates. So I've got purlins and columns. Okay, now I'm just going to delete these templates and now load a preset of templates. Okay, so previously I've created a set template for columns and purlins. Okay, so I'm going to just load these within the model. So I have several templates now I've just loaded. There we are. So columns and purlins, so main and secondary, and you can see they've all got different properties. Okay, so different deflection limits. So there for the main columns, you can see 150 and 300. Similar for the secondary columns, but probably some of the other changes are different. For the purlins, you can see for purlins that deflection limits has changed. Yeah, and we've also got an element verification for LTB for the purlins, but not for the columns. Okay, so you can see it's disabled for the columns. So we've got the different design settings there. Now I've got my templates. If I were to create these from scratch, as we saw earlier with the columns and the purlins, I can also export those into a template for future use on another project. So let's export this and show the export. So I can export that as an XML and then open that within the project and just launch those templates. So I've loaded all my templates. Now it's a simple case of selecting my elements and applying the templates. So you'll see just how easy now is. You are seeing so far how easy it is to to apply those templates and how quickly it is also to carry those changes across. So I'll select my column. We're going to isolate the columns. We just want the main columns, which is at the front of the structure. Switch to the top view. And just select the ones at the front. So we're only interested in the shorter columns. Add the main columns template. Okay, so on both sides now. Now I've narrowed them down to just the columns at the front. So now simply select all my columns. And you'll see now I'm going to load the design template for columns. And if I scroll further down here, I should now have where it says general design template. Yeah, from there, you'll see I have a list of templates now. Let's take a look at how the templates have appeared and which ones we can see in the list. So there we are. So those 4 templates which are loaded into the project, I can now see those as options to select. So I'm going to select main columns and apply these settings for these columns that we see on screen. Okay, so I've applied that template. If I scroll further down to the properties now, and you'll see the properties are now inactive. Okay, so they're shown by grey fields now. They grayed out, and now that prevents any accidental changes. So it can be very easy sometimes to accidentally enable a check or accidentally click and turn something off or change some of the parameters. And sometimes when you accidentally change these settings, it can be very hard to pinpoint why you can see a difference in your result or why that's happened. So preventing any accidental changes as well. So you can see that they were grayed out. If I wanted to then make any changes to the properties, so the design properties, I'll go back into the design templates window and make the changes there. So yeah, I've selected elements, and now I'm going to apply another template to these just to see how it carries through. So those I've selected rafters here. I'm just going to apply a Berlin template. So you can see here, you can see now it's applied the templates. All the settings are inactive, so I can't make any accidental changes. They're locked. Okay, unless I go to the main templates and make the changes there. So, very efficient way to when it comes to modeling defining properties. Next up, we have the combinations. So, in the combinations, you can either create your combinations manually or use the simplified combinations generator. However, if you wanted to use the same combinations across projects, okay, so if you predefine them, we have a bidirectional link with Microsoft Excel where we can load a set of combinations, predefined combinations. So here, this Excel, for example, in some cases, you might want to use a set of predefined combinations which you use in another project, or you just want to consider these combinations rather than just type them out individually. So I've got a set of combinations in an Excel file. I can simply import this as a template into my project. So let's go ahead and apply these. Okay, so some loads are missing, which why it hasn't applied those. So now you can see it's instantly applied those combinations. And I can still do the same thing if I want to export those to use on another project. So I can export those out as well. Import and export between the combinations. So now I'll show you just a similar structure, but with connections on here, which has got the results. So we want to be able to optimize the structure as well. So as part of the optimization, we can use use a set of design templates for that as well. So I'm just going to quickly, for example, switch some of the views and have a look at the deflections, so we can just remind ourselves of the results. Deflections, deviation, level deflection, maximum around 79%. Okay, and that we're expecting that to see that 79 in the suggested shape. If I scroll further down here, you can see that 79% work ratio. So these sections need to be modified, okay, because they're above the limit which I've told the program. So if I can choose to optimize these by design template. So if I, now you can see earlier where I did the design templates to the model, the burdens and the columns. These are carried through then to the analysis stage for optimization as well. Here, so I can simply narrow this down. So we saw this is a large list by element. This is narrowed it down to just a design template. Okay, so that can make it very even easier then to optimize the structure. So I can apply those changes and optimize it using that template. There's several different uses there with that design template. Next up, generating reports. So generating reports, it can sometimes take a while, generally, if you compile different media, but with advanced design, that we've made that process simple and as smooth as possible. So I'm going to add another chapter here for the shape sheet. So I've got quite many different types of content, in the report there. So you've got forces, steel design, shape sheet. So this is if I find each section by section manually. I can then save this as a template, similar to the combinations. I can save this as a template and then use this template to generate reports for another project. Okay, so I'm just going to save this template. Let's go to reports, and let's clear that the area there and load a different template. So I'm going to use a different template which I've created with another project. Okay, so that's the same one we just saw. Now let's load the other template with our views. Okay, so you can see now I've got a different template. So it's very easy then, speeding up the process of generating your reports by using that the report templates. And then I would simply generate my reports. Okay, so now if I show you the concrete structure, just to show you how subsystems work. So in the project browser, we can manage the model using a series of different subsystems. In this case, if I expand one of these, for example, you can see here I've got ground to fourth multi-story building. Within that, we have a set of systems, so columns, walls, beams, and slabs. So instead of creating these manually, I can also export this tree. Okay, so I can export this set of subsystems then to use in another project. So I can simply load those subsystems in, and away I go then with my modeling. So subsystems, I'll just save this. And then over to our original model, so the first model we're looking at, and just to open let's have a look at this one. Let's open a new model of these, because this one's already got some subsystems in there. So I can import it into this one if I wanted to, but just to see better, we'll open a new model, so a blank worksheet. Create a new document. This one you'll see, obviously, when you're starting out, the subsystems need to be defined. So you can see that it's a structure, but there are no subsystems underneath that. So instead of having to manually look those folders, I can open the subsystems which are saved for each of those categories, so the walls, slabs, and beams. There we go. Yeah. Okay, so there you can see got my 4 subsystems there, so columns, walls, beams, and slab. And I can copy and paste these and create these across the different floors as well. So again, a very useful tool to have when it comes to defining your subsystems. Now, next up here, we want to take a look at defining our concrete settings. Yeah, so when it comes to the RC design, we want to be able to define the concrete parameters when it comes to the design. Yeah, so concrete design, RC design, we want to be able to make sure that we are seeing those parameters as we want. So, there 1 second. Okay, so here you can see I've got multi-story concrete structure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to simply open one of these columns design module. Okay. So let's open this column. Let's just give it a few seconds to load. Okay, let's open the current analysis model first. So we'll open that analysis model. Okay, so now if we open this with design modules to as if we were to design the reinforcement parameters, design for the reinforcement cages, open this with the design module. We have our column now within that design module, and I want to be able to define my reinforcement settings. So into the reinforcement settings, I'll just make some changes to this. So by default, you can see what the values are and what I'm changing them to. So I'm going to impose the maximum spacing on that. Make some changes, put this up 30. By default, all the members start off with these settings, so 20 and 4, but I'll just change that minimum spacing. And Pascal space will say will providing hooks for dancers less than H10s. Oops, we'll narrow that down. That is naturally maximum spacing down to 30. Okay. Now I want to assign minimum and maximum diameters for the links or the transversal reinforcement. So minimum is 10, maximum 12. So I've just changed the angle as well. Maximum spacing will increase up to 80 millimeters. Minimum spacing 80, maximum 1 meter. Yeah. So top link offset will just push this up to 7.5. So these are a few settings I've changed in here. You can change many settings you want in here, and when you save the template, it will take remember the settings that you've made for this column. So let's calculate this column. Okay, very colorful reinforcement. So let's save this template now. So I'll save this as a column template. So let's overwrite the one created previously. We got one. And then I want to be able to use the same properties on a different project. So let's close this, and I'll open up another project where I want to apply those same design properties, same properties for the reinforcement. I'll switch over to this concrete structure now, and we want to apply this to this central column here. And then I simply, from the design modules, the options and the properties, you can see on the side, nothing has been assigned. Okay? By default, it's none for the elements. And from here, you can simply choose the template which I've saved. So I've saved that as the column template. select that template. I want to be carrying those changes across through to this column as well. And it's just a simple case of analyzing the model and then opening this column with design modules to see changes. You can see in the command line exactly what it's calculating each step. So finish the calculation. I always like when I realize switching to a 3D view and turning the mesh off. That's better. There we go. So now let's open this this column with the design module and see what those settings look like. Okay, so here we have our change there. See now it's carried the settings through. Okay, so for the 20 where we saw longitudinal reinforcement, that's probably because against some design criteria overrides, so it won't let me go any more than 20 millimeters, probably for design purposes. So you can see here the maximum minimum diameter 10s and 12s, and here's the spacing. We set the meter and 7.5, so 75 millimeters for the offset as well. Just close this back to the structure, and that was the template for the design module. So that brings me to the end of the demonstration there for our templates. I'll now open up the questions panel. So if you have any questions in the last minutes, please pop these into the questions page and I'll go through your questions. So at the moment I can see there's a couple of questions. So, okay, so Jin Long Lee, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, says, will the system colors be saved to the subsystem template, please? Okay, so the system colors, although I didn't show it, we have, I'm assuming you're referring to the legend. So with the display settings, you can choose to display the geometry with a colored legend, yeah, which shows all the different system, yeah. At the moment, I don't believe that there is a template for that. But what I can do is I can check and perhaps suggest that as a change. The next question we have is adding or deleting more points in the planar member so that you can change its geometry easily. So also being able to update responses on notes to be more detailed on beams and columns. Yes, very valid point there. Thank you for that. I'll just allow a couple of more minutes for any questions that you have. And if you do come up with any questions after this webinar, please feel free to send me an email directly. So I'll just put my email in the chat box so you will have that. Okay. Okay, so once again, thank you for joining me on today's webinar, the final in the series of the Advanced Design Lunch and Learn Week. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this past week. Hope it's been informative for you, the Advanced Design Lunch and Learn Week. So as usual, please make sure you follow us on social media, so on our Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube pages, where you'll find all the latest tips and tricks, tutorials, offers, and our events, future events. So thank you for joining me. Thanks for joining me on the Lunch and Learn Week. It's bye from me. Bye.